Hello, this is a review of the Sony Handycam HDR-CX580V. What you see out of the box, when you open it up, you get all the parts that you see listed here. Of course, you get the usual, the manual, the software, which actually comes on the camera itself when you access it. Parts guide for spare accessories and your usual warranty guide. And of course, you get the camera itself. And it's slightly bigger than some of the previous models that were the CX160. You get a lens hood if you'd like to put it on to help reduce lens flare. Otherwise, this is your standard camera that you get with most of the other cases here, and it's perfectly fine without it. You use this to reduce lens flare if you happen to have any of that. Also, then you get the AC adapter, which of course is the default way to charge batteries, is to leave the battery plugged onto the back of it instead of separate, and then you just plug this into the power adapter, plug those into the wall. It's kind of a little bit clunkier way, but definitely works. I highly recommend the Sony BCTRV travel charger. It is such a more compact way to go about it. I have a separate video review on this. You just plug this into the wall, the battery into this. We'll talk about that later. Then, of course, you get the USB extension. This is actually really useful. You're going to probably want to do this, so if you can't conveniently get from this little adapter here that's plugged into the hand, so you notice how the USB adapter plugs right in here. It's a lot easier to take off with two hands. But basically, if your computer isn't this close, now maybe a laptop is, but you're going to probably want to have this open so you can connect a little bit further if your computer has a further port than that. Then you get some video cables. Here's your usual one with the yellow connector. You probably aren't going to use this one a whole lot. Now this, I was really happy that they included this. This is your mini HDMI cable. I had a Sony Handycam CX160, and it didn't come with the HDMI cable. It actually came with a component video cable, which, although useful still for HD, is so much nicer to have one cable to plug in for the HDMI. So where do you do that? Pop it open here, and this is where you have extra adapters to plug in. So plug into your HDMI port, and it was really nice to have that accessible. Of course, it comes with one battery. This is the slim battery. To me, it's the most useful size because I can quickly tuck it in a case, take a case with me, and it pops in, leave it on the camera, and it's the lowest profile option. There's actually a smaller one than this that you really don't want to use with these higher end cameras that just doesn't pack enough time. This is the smallest that they claim you should use. We'll talk about that. Of course, there's other sizes. Here's a medium size I highly recommend to have in your backpack as well. More on that in a little bit. And of course, your lens hood. So with the lens hood, you get the camera as seen pictured here. Again, it's supposed to help just reduce a little bit of lens flare if you happen to have it. You probably don't need this most of the time. So the lens hood is easily added and removed. So basically you line up with the flash hole that you see here on the left. Here's the ring that you can turn. You see this little plastic ridged ring? You just do it counterclockwise to get it off, and you want it two-handed. So here you see how it starts to rotate around. And basically just rotate it around, right back to the hole, and it comes right on off. Obviously if you're two-handing, you're not going to let it fall like that, but otherwise you line up the hole, line it up with the flash right here, and then you can easily go like this to tighten it on. So it's really easy to get that on and off. And some accessories sold separately that I really like, that I just want to mention, is if you're looking for a nice small compact case that can just fold on out, that you see here, and I have separate video reviews of these. So throw this over your shoulder. I carried this around Disney World in the last year. And then here's another similar one. Both of these are Case Logic. I have separate video reviews of these two bags. If you're just looking at a very compact way to go with the slim battery packed right on in. Of course, I highly recommend the BCTRV travel charger. It's a more compact way to just stick the battery on and charge. And then, of course, we can talk about battery sizes. So remember, the default battery is this one here. So this is the smallest one. This is the one that gives you the smallest profile to easily fit inside bags like that, which is what I like for running around Disney World. But if you're looking for more record time, then you look at about double the thickness. And of course, you can always keep multiple of these on hand. There's even a bigger one than this that stands about this far, but that I thought was a bit too big. So with the smallest battery, you can see it attached here. Or with the larger battery, you can see that it definitely sticks out farther, but then it takes some real cramming in order to get it into the case. Now, you're not supposed to store the camera with the battery attached. So what I do is I have a little zip bag that I toss the battery in after I take it out, and I toss it in there and then I zip it up like that together. Now, when I'm running around Disney World, I don't literally take the battery off all the time, but at the end of the day, I take it off, toss it in here. Now, before I got this new camera, I actually had another Sony Handycam. This is the model CX160, which I absolutely loved. So we'll be able to contrast a few of the differences. Basically, this is a slightly smaller camera, although technically inferior. It was a superb camera in terms of image stabilization, HD quality, but we're not here to talk about this camera. My point is, I've had Sony Handycams in the past. This was the CX160, which I absolutely loved, took it on vacations with me. So now we're here to talk about this new camera. So it fits pretty well in my hands. I really like how it fits. So basically, you slip your hand through the strap that you see here, and you can adjust the thickness of this a little bit here. And your hands go around at the top, and this is where you have the record buttons and stuff. So you press this whenever you want to start recording. So watch. Start recording, and you see it flash, and it's recording. Press it to stop, and you have your zoom here, so I can zoom in and zoom out. So here, zoom in, zoom out, and you can zoom further. And this one doesn't have as deep of an optical zoom as my CX160 does, but you can turn on digital zoom and it'll zoom further. But by the way, when you're zooming, it will hit a point that if you're not careful, things go fuzzy. You see how that's a little bit fuzzy? At first, my CX160 did a better job zooming a lot further because it had 30 times optical zoom. It still went fuzzy at 2-bit of a micro level. You can also toggle camera and video modes up here as well. But it's a little bit taller in my hand here, this CX580 here, compared to my CX160. It was a little bit more comfortable to have a smaller camera like my CX160. But honestly, I've started to do all my reviews with the new camera as I test this one out here, and I honestly don't notice that much difference. So for example, this is my CX160. It looks very similar, but it's not quite as high right here, which makes it a little bit more comfortable to get to the zoom, but otherwise the button placement's the same. You can see I have the thicker battery on it right now. And when I do the zoom here, it does a little bit better job zooming in without going fuzzy. And again, they all go fuzzy when you get a little bit too zoomed in. So the LCD screens on these Sony Handycams have been excellent from my perspective. Now, you can rotate them around, so when you want to watch it in a view-only mode here, so that's what I have opened here. It's really easy to navigate around, and the buttons work pretty well. So I go back here, you got different modes, tons and tons of choices under these different modes here, but playback is one of the things I'll use more often to go check things. So event view, things will sort themselves by date. So here's a bunch of the videos that I started recording on this camera for this particular review, and you can sit here and you can actually play them. For example, back up. Notice the fingerprints. It does show some fingerprints.
I actually had another Sony Handycam. This is the model
You don't need to hear that part of the review. You just saw it live on the beginning of this review. So we can go back here, and the quality of the screen looks really nice. So I'm going to play the demo video. Now this does have speakers, stereo speakers here and here, which sounds noticeably better than my existing CX160. We're just going to go ahead and let that play. But it looks really good. I don't know how much is going to come through in this video. So not every action is super easy to do on the screen, and every once in a while you find yourself, you don't want to, if you're running around Disney World, you're not going to want to really be drilling down through a lot of things. So what you do is you set things up, and what I really look for is a camera that does a really good, very good quality at working at the default and automatic settings. There are tons and tons of settings. This is just the setup menu. If I go back, you can actually go into the camera options, and there's even tons and tons. You can change white balance, spot meter, focus, and go on. And by the way, you can touch the screen to bring focus to specific things as you go. There's lots and lots of choices for you to tinker with, but I think the defaults work excellent on these here. Of course, you can change the quality modes as well. This has a few more things we'll notice on the front. You'll also notice that you have a flash here. On the bottom is the 5.1 surround sound microphone. Another nice thing here is, look by my thumb. You see this little hole here? This is a red light that turns on when you're recording. When I was in Disney World, my wife never knew when I was actually recording or not when I was running around with my CX160. It's really nice to have this light on the front. However, one drawback is if you don't want people to know that you're recording, then a light isn't pro, and you can't turn it off.